Right, so today we've got with us Aaron Bellingham, Associate Director for our Technology division here. Aaron kind of looks after what we describe as specialist roles, leadership roles, both across permanent and contracting. And today, Aaron, I just thought if you're happy, what we'll do is there's 3 topical questions that have been coming up over the last maybe month. And they're just getting highlighted again in the last few weeks. So this is just, I think, an easy way to get a view out to people in that technology specialist leadership space. So the 3 questions I want to talk to today is really critical one, what is the market doing? The next one is, should I consider fixed term as an employment type versus hourly rate? And then the last one is, are pay rates being affected at the moment? So the first big one for you, my friend, is what is the technology market doing? How would you describe it in the specialist leadership space?
Yeah, thanks, Troy. Look, I think first and foremost, I'm working out of home today, so demonstrating the flexible working, remote working, which is we're seeing more and more of in technology, which is great. But I think just a general snapshot of the overall Wellington marketplace for technology. I think it's holding up reasonably well. As we kind of moved into alert level 4, we obviously saw things fell off a cliff pretty quickly in terms of resourcing. Everything pretty much went on hold. A lot of resources were redirected into COVID-related projects. And as we've moved through the levels, I think we've started to see some uplift. And obviously, level 3 it started to improve slightly. Level 2 and now obviously level 1 where we're at today. We're starting to see that I think the some sort of normalization back in technology. Whilst we're not at the same levels we were pre-COVID, I think we are definitely seeing some signs of recovery. There's certainly some activity in the marketplace. There is hiring happening. I think it's a good opportunity, and I think organisations who are taking the opportunity to advertise for roles in a market that typically they may find it quite difficult to secure resources. Well, I think the organisations are actually identifying it's actually a good opportunity right now, because there are some businesses across New Zealand that have been kind of impacted more so and have had to restructure and let good people go into the marketplace. So I think organisations are actually taking up that opportunity to secure some good talent in the marketplace. So overall, I think from the people that I've seen let go through a restructure, they've picked up work pretty quickly in the technology space. Commercial, public, obviously 2 very different markets in Wellington. Mm-hmm. I think in the public sector, we saw the budget land, and we saw obviously where the money went into certain ministries, into certain sectors. And I think just given the lockdown, I think we're starting to see budgets flow through a little bit more slowly than they have in previous years. But the good news is there's a lot of discussion happening, and a lot of resource managers are actually in process of planning actually how that looks on the ground. So seeing probably a few more senior candidates in the marketplace at the program level, and I think that's maybe just a measure around some of the money coming a bit later. So as an effect, flow and effect of that, programs kick off a little bit later. So definitely a lot of investment happening in technology. Again, from the budget, you'll see a lot of investment into technology, digital transformations. I think going into lockdown, it highlighted the need for digital services, and the conversations I've had in market, it's actually accelerated a lot of planning that was in place for the next 2 years. So we're seeing a lot of that technology digital roadmap actually being brought forward. So look, I think demand will surge in the coming months. Keeping in mind we've got an election coming up in September, so we might see maybe a little bit of a pause prior to that election, but that's typical for any election cycle. So private sector, if I'm looking at banking, utilities, I think we're seeing more hiring or more conversion to fixed term and more appetite for permanent resources at the moment. Again, I think they're just taking the opportunity in the current market to test the waters somewhat, just to see who's out in their current stable, who might be open to joining organisations on a full-time basis.
Yeah, it's a good one. And that leads obviously into that fixed term, which you've just started touching on, because if you talk about banking utilities, that's not new, is it? I would assume, but I'd like to go wider with that term of, would someone consider fixed term? But if I think about banking, resourcing, how they've tried to get their measures right, from the banks I've dealt with, they tend to think they've got slightly too many contractors, and they've always been trying to convert, how do we get our contractors to fixed term, or how do we get them to permanent? And yeah, it's an interesting decision for that group I suppose just to continue that push and to apply that, take the opportunity if you're the employer. But just talk to me a wee bit about, if you were a contractor, an hourly rate, Aaron, sitting in Wellington, I suppose is what we're talking about here. What is the lure of fixed term? Should people be considering it? And it's not black and white, but how do you respond?
Yeah, it's a question that often comes up, and it's coming up more regularly at this stage, because employers are talking to their contractors about, hey, we're looking at moving contractors to a fixed term, and obviously it really comes down to your personal choice in your own situation. And I think anyone who's been contracting for a number of years is more comfortable with the turbulence that comes with contracting in the market. It does tend to shift from being a buyer's or a seller's market. So, but equally, contracting is a very different proposition to fixed term or permanent. Fixed term or permanent. If I look at fixed term, it's actually it's a permanent employment contract with an end date. So that's the way I view. So I think you're more part of an organisation. It's a different play. That as a fixed term employee, my expectation would be to for that organisation to maybe invest more in me as an employee, because I'm on their payroll. So versus the contractor arrangement where you're coming in for a specific purpose without any development expectations on your own personal or professional side. So you're coming in, so that would be my take on it. And I think the fixed term market itself is it's attractive if you want some certainty in the current climate. But equally, I think technology still has a big demand for hourly rate contractors, and that'll continue because not everyone needs to be coming in for extended periods of time on technology projects. So I think if anything, I think contracting on an hourly basis gives organisations more flexibility in this current climate as well. So I think there's pros and cons to it, and it really comes down to your own personal circumstances around, if you want some certainty in a slightly uncertain market.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think sometimes I look at the three different options, and I know there's more than three, but I do remind myself and candidates, at the end of the day, in all of those options, you're roughly 1 month away from redundancy, or you're 1 month away from notice, you're 1 month away from, being able to move to the next thing. So in my opinion, they don't necessarily give more certainty, but there is perception of certainty through permanence. But, we know that all the restructuring incorporates permanent people or fixed term people. And I'm not pushing or advocating for contracting. I just think, but you're right, your appetite for risk. My big comment, I think, around converting and that personal preference is right. But, at the end of the day, you have to take into account, do I really want to work permanently, even if it's fixed term, within this organisation? Do I align to their purpose, their values? Am I working with a management group or a team, that can build and grow me? I think you're dead right. I really love that additional flavour that if you're going to convert to fixed term, because you're getting the worst of both worlds, whereby you may or may not be getting investment as a permanent staff member, and you're not getting the flexibility that you might get as a contractor. So it's a good point to fixed term. Can you ensure you're getting some development through that process? Because it's a really important part. And I talked to Frank Harkin recently about continued learning and how important that is. But yeah, it's awesome. Aaron, next question. Hourly rates. What is the market doing? What is your take on hourly rates?
Yeah, and I'm not seeing a lot of a change in hourly rates hit the market at this stage. Obviously, with more of a push to fixed term, we're seeing there's an opportunity there to lock in some cost savings for a number of organisations to secure contract resources on a fixed term basis. But what I'm seeing on the hourly rate, I'm seeing people more open to to negotiate. Certainly there's more flexibility on the contractor side to at least have a discussion. I think people are aware that there are some, challenging sort of market conditions as a result of what's unfolded. But equally, it really depends on what area of technology you sit as well. So, in the higher sort of volume areas like, project management, business analysis, I think there is, it's remained reasonably stable, but I get the sense that contractors are definitely open to a conversation to see where they may be able to work, with clients. And particularly, and if they can get good terms, then there's certainly an openness towards having a conversation at least anyway. But certainly not seeing anything really hit the market in terms of a drop in contractor rates at this stage. So they're holding reasonably steady.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And I think I think there's that conversation as an individual and as a collective group to say, are people open to the conversation? I think my advice would be, clients, I would encourage them to be open to the conversation, to have the conversation around rates, and to the contractor, I guess, whether they know it or not. I think to be open to the conversation, negotiation, it's a good time to do that, to show some benefit to that organisation, or, just provide an understanding that New Zealand is going through some harder times. And if there is a small bit of sacrifice from all, then it kind of wins for overall. But that might be just a bit of an aside point.
Yeah, and I think equally too, there's always going to be demand in technology, and if anything, with more investment in technology today than there probably was 12 months ago, given what's unfolded. New Zealand borders are shut off, so we've only got a pool of candidates that we're actually working with at the moment, and those with specialisation in certain programming languages or cloud technologies. There is going to be more demand and a lack of supply, if anything, because we don't have that channel of offshore talent coming through. So there are different approaches to how employers might look to sort of bridge that gap, to maybe control some of the remuneration pressures that may come on the back of lack of supply, high demand. So it'd be interesting to see what happens over the course of the next 3 to 6 months.
I love it. Aaron, thank you very, very much for your time. You're certainly a man who knows what you're doing, which helps.
Awesome, mate. Thanks, Troy. Good to catch up, and I'll see you in the office tomorrow.
Go well.